Hello everyone and welcome back to Scandinavian Design 101. I'm Sanna.
I'm Andreas, and we are two Swedes and we love design. And today we're actually going to talk about the American design duo Charles and Ray Eames. And we know we might be out on a bit thin ice. I mean, two Swedes talking about these two American icons is perhaps like if two Swedes would try to explain the basics of baseball or something.
Perhaps.
But we'll do our best because they were so extremely important for designers all over the world, and not least in Scandinavia, and influenced the megastars like Arne Jacobsen and Hans Wegner. And therefore, let's talk about the Eameses.
Yeah, let's do. Charles Ormond Eames was born in the summer of 1907 in St. Louis in the Midwestern state of Missouri. He was described as a creative and curious child with a gift for drawing. His authoritarian father was a former soldier in the Union Army who started a career as a security guard and later advanced to head of security for the Missouri Pacific Railroad. He was 58 years old when the son was born, and he gave his two children an old-school upbringing. Charles' mother, Celine Lambert, was 30 years younger than her husband, and she's often described as a strong woman with the main responsibility for the family.
Yeah. And the childhood was far from easy for the young Charles. In 1914, his father was shot in the line of duty and was forced to retire. And this was a hard blow for the family, and already at the age of 10, Charles had to start working full-time, parallel to school, to provide for his family. And his father passed away in 1922, and the 15-year-old boy was raised by his mother, older sister, and two aunts. Economically, it was a constant struggle, and Charles had to work 12 hours a day at a steel company on the weekends and during summers. Despite this, he did well in school, and after graduating, he studied architecture at the Washington University in St. Louis between 1924 and 26. His classmates described him as a skilled and ambitious student, but after only 4 semesters, he was expelled. According to the university, he was too modern and too concerned with Frank Lloyd Wright.
Okay, what does that even mean?
I don't really understand. I guess he was a troublemaker because he didn't agree with the teachers.
Yes, of course.
Probably.
During his time at the Washington University, he met his first wife, Catherine. The two got married in 1929 and soon got a daughter named Lucia. The same year, Charles started his own architectural practice in St. Louis with partner Charles Ray. Their works were highly influenced by the Finnish architect Eliel Saarinen, the father of Eero Saarinen. During the 1930s, the office got several commissions in Missouri and Arkansas, among them the St. Mary's churches in Helena and Paragould. What is that place? In 1938, Charles was invited by Eliel Saarinen to study architecture at the Cranbrook Academy of Art in Michigan.
Yeah.
The studies went well, and he soon became instructor and the head of the industrial design department.
Yeah, that's...
Pretty cool.
Yeah. And we will soon continue talking about the time at Cranbrook, but first let's focus on Ray Eames. She was born as Bernice Alexandra Kaiser in December of 1912 in Sacramento, California. She was called Ray by her parents, and this name stuck for the rest of her life. Her father owned a theater in Sacramento, but in 1920 he became an insurance salesman to earn more money. It's boring, but yeah.
Sounds really boring.
When he became the owner of a downtown office, the family moved from an apartment to a bungalow outside town.
Bungalow,
Yeah.
huh?
And Ray was a creative child, and her parents thought her to appreciate art and fun objects. When she graduated high school in 1931, she was on the decorating committee for the senior dance. And after high school, she studied art in Millbrook and later New York, where she studied abstract expressionism in the studio of the German-born painter Hans Hofmann.
In the 30s, Ray's artistic ambitions were totally set on painting, and in 1936 she was one of the founding members of the arts organization American Abstract Artists. Most of her art from this time is sadly lost, but one of her paintings is in the permanent collection of the Whitney Museum of American Art. Ray came to study in the Hoffman studio until 1940, when her elderly mother fell sick and she returned home to take care of her. Her mother passed away the same year, and Ray started planning on building a house for herself in California. Instead, a friend recommended the 28-year-old Ray to first study at the Cranbrook Academy in Michigan to become a more versatile artist. Yeah. And so she did.
Yeah. And in 1940, the Museum of Modern Art in New York arranged a contest challenging designers all over the world to submit furniture, lamps, and textiles of organic design. And the expression organic design was explained as harmonious organization of the parts within the whole according to structure, material, and purpose. And winners would have their works exhibited at the museum the following year and also be awarded contracts with manufacturing and distribution with major department stores. This was a huge possibility for aspiring designers to make a name for themselves and not least to earn quite a lot of money. And Charles teamed up with Eero Saarinen to design a range of organic chairs, tables, and also storage units. And most interesting were the chairs, of course, intended to be made from the innovative new material molded plywood. Their goal was to create chairs molded in a single piece of plywood. The technique was still not developed enough, and creating futuristic-looking chairs turned out to be a struggle. And at the time, Charles had already met Ray, who stepped in to help with the graphic design for the entry.
What's graphic about?
They had to do like graphic, they didn't really produce the furniture. Mm-hmm. They made drawings of them and photographs of them. So they had to have graphic materials to show the jury. And the two soon fell in love, and Charles divorced Catherine, and he and Ray married in the summer of 1941.
The entry by Charles Eames and Eero Saarinen was, in a sense, a huge success. Their organic chair was awarded first prize in the seating category, and the museum promised a lot when it came to production and distribution. The two designers hoped for mass production and big royalties. The company Haywood Wakefield was commissioned to produce the advanced plywood shell, but problems soon emerged. Turning the sketches and prototypes into mass-produced chairs turned out to be an impossible task using existing machinery. And even worse, less than a month after the exhibition was held, Pearl Harbor was attacked by the Japanese, and the United States was officially an active participant in the Second World War. Producing furniture was suddenly close to impossible when materials like steel, plywood, and rubber were reserved for the military.
Yeah. And already before the exhibition was held in the fall of 1941, the newlywed Charles and Ray moved to LA to try their luck as designers. And this was a huge risk for the couple, who lacked the education necessary to get the license to work as architects in California. And they also lacked the contacts needed to find a suitable job in the furniture business and in their new hometown. But the area flourished economically, not least due to the growing demand for naval ships, weapons, and other supplies needed in the war effort. Most airplanes ordered by the Air Force were produced in California. And between 1941 and 45, more than $70 billion were invested in California, mainly on the Navy and Air Force. In a way, the U.S. financial center shifted from the East Coast to the West Coast, but the focus was set on winning the war. Producing furniture just wasn't an option.
In the summer of 44, the Eameses rented a room at the Highland Hotel in Hollywood, and soon they tried to come in contact with local architects and designers. The goal was to find a suitable job and to continue developing modernist furniture. They soon managed to get an apartment in the Strathmore complex in West Side Los Angeles and immediately resumed their furniture experiments. In a spare room, they constructed a large machine used to bend plywood into three-dimensional shapes. They called it the Kazam. A lot of electricity was needed, more than the normal wall sockets could provide. So to solve this problem, Charles climbed an electric pole outside the apartment and hot-wired the cables. And in that process, he almost electrocuted himself. But the mischief worked and the couple could start using the machine.
Yeah, but an apartment was hardly a suitable place for such experiments, and they lacked the money as well as the raw materials needed. All these problems soon brought an end to the experimentations, and the Eameses were ready to give up on their dream on working as architects. Charles took actually a job at the movie company Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, and Ray made a living doing illustrations. Luckily, things would soon change, and much thanks to the military-industrial complex. And things as random as medical supplies and parts for military aircrafts would come to save the Eameses' dream of becoming designers. At the time, the short supply of aluminum forced the Air Force and Navy to use plywood as a replacement, and extensive experimentations were also made to create glider planes suitable to land soldiers on enemy ground. And these planes would only be used once and needed to be cheap as well as lightweight, and plywood turned out to be the perfect material to use. A friend of the Eameses was a medical doctor in the Navy, and he explained to the couple that the existing leg splints used by the Navy were insufficient and not least expensive to produce. Plywood leg splints could possibly be a solution. Charles and Ray immediately started experimenting with a leg splint of their own, adapted according to the doctor's specifications. And it wasn't an easy task. The shape was complicated and needed to be adapted, of course, to the human anatomy. Charles made plaster molds of his own leg and used them to come up with the perfect shape. And in the fall of 1942, a prototype was finished and shown to the Navy, who were impressed and immediately ordered 5,000 splints. Encouraged by this, the Eameses joined up with some colleagues and founded the company Plyformed Wood Company. In a workshop located in an old bakery, the leg splints were produced and then shipped off to the Navy. The company was soon bought by the Michigan-based Evans Products, a company big enough to produce large quantity of leg splints, and that was a good thing when the Navy ordered an additional 200,000 leg splints in the following year.
Wow.
So that's a lot. And the success with the leg splints let the Eameses develop other products for the military, among them arm splints, a stretcher, a pilot seat, and of course parts for glider planes, as we mentioned earlier. And none of these were put into serial production, but
Can you really say that when they made so many of them?
Of the other things. The leg splints were, of course.
But the arm splints should be.
Yeah, they should, but they weren't by some reason.
Okay.
But of course, the Eameses learned a lot in the process of creating these prototypes.
In 1945, the war was coming to an end, and during the war years, the Eames office was founded, and with 15 employees, the office shifted focus to chairs. The aim was to create a chair from a single piece of plywood. A huge lot of different prototypes were developed, among them 3-legged chairs, wooden-legged chairs, and matching tables. But a single-piece shell soon turned out to be an impossible task. Instead, the back and seat was divided into 2 different parts, and the legendary LCW and DCW chairs were born. A whole range of furniture was launched in 1946, and the Eameses got a lot of attention in the press. Let's take a look at some of them.
at the exhibition New Furniture Designed by Charles Eames.
Just Charles?
Yeah, they choose just to mention him. Yeah.
Oh, that's bold.
Yeah. Held at the Museum of Modern Art in 1946, the manufacturer Herman Miller showed an interest in the furniture. And this was the start of a lifelong collaboration. And still today the furniture are, of course, produced by Herman Miller.
That's lifelong.
Yeah, it's really more than lifelong.
More than lifelong.
And now we have come to an end of our introduction to Charles Ray Eames and early years. Yeah, but already next week we will talk about the exhibition Low-Cost Furniture and tell you more about their famous fiberglass chairs, but of course a lot of more things and other entries.
Of course.
Hope you're watching then, yeah. But if you like this video,
please click thumbs up and subscribe.
And follow us on Instagram, we're called Scandinavian Design 101.
Yeah, thank you so much for watching.
Thank you.